Buenas tardes, Mr. Estrada. Estamos aquí en esta entrevista del día de febrero 12 del 2021. La entrevista que vamos a hacer el día de hoy es relacionada con el impacto que ha ocasionado el COVID-19 en la comunidad de San Antonio, Texas. Mi nombre es Ana María Juárez. Soy estudiante graduada de la Universidad de Texas en San Antonio, del Departamento de Lenguas Modernas y Literatura.
Okay.
Podíamos empezar con tu nombre, saber un poco más de ti.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Ray Armand Estrada. Y vivo aquí en San Antonio. I am a native of San Antonio. And I don't know if you're going to ask me questions later on, but I'm 50 years old. And I'm very happy to be doing this interview.
Oh. Qué gusto, qué gusto. Poco de ti, ha dicho que naciste en San Antonio, Texas. ¿Cómo son tus actividades de día a día?
Well, they've changed bastante since the pandemic has happened. And I'm a writer. So every day I get up and I write. But in the past, I've always been able to mix it up with going to the theater or going to the movies or going to dinners. And now that I don't really have that option really that much anymore, at least I don't feel comfortable with that. I feel like I'm very secluded in my space where my bed is there, my writing desk is there, and those are the main things of my life. So cada día, I think it's very different. It's very different than it was before.
Y hablando de eso, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo es el vivir donde vives? ¿Cómo es el vivir donde ahorita tú vives?
Well, I live in a pool house. So there's a large house here. I don't live in there. There's a pool behind it, and there's una piscina. And I live in a house that's a long time ago. It was just for the pool, but now I live there. So there's a pool there. Es demasiado frío para ir allá en este momento.
Oh, sí.
But it's nice to look at, and I live alone. That's an important part. I live by myself, so that's a big part of my daily life. Is that there's a lot of solitude.
Muy bien. Y, ¿qué es lo que te ha formado como persona? Has mencionado que escribes, has mencionado que es lo que te gusta hacer y que te relacionas con tus amistades, ¿verdad? Pero ¿qué es lo que te ha formado a ser esta persona que eres?
I would say that the fact that I'm gay has shaped everything that I do in my life, because I'm 50 now. I was born in 1970. I had my father is very homophobic. So once I came of age, it felt like everything that I did. I was a part of the theater. I was an actor. I did gay plays. I wrote gay things for publishing. And now that I'm older and more mature, I look back and I realize that almost everything I was doing was because it was a way of being seen, como quien dice. Like I wanted people to see me for who I was. And so everything that I did in my jobs had to do with being gay and a veces Latino, because I was never really around Latinos in adulthood. So when people would say, "Oh, why do you say your last name Estrada when you can just say Estrada?" I was like, wait a minute. I have the right to say my name como un Latino. And so that has shaped my life. Como un gay, como un persona gay y un persona Latino at the time that I was growing up. In San Antonio, I had to fight to be gay. In Nueva York, I lived in New York for 16 years. I had to fight to be Latino.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
I wasn't around the Latino scene in New York. I was around a lot of um, environments where the majority of people were blancos,
Mm.
Anglos, and so I do feel, looking back, I do feel that. So now at this point in my life, I look back and that those are the two things that have formed my entire life.
Bien, muy bien. ¿Qué quieres que la gente sepa en este momento de ti?
That's a hard question to answer, but I'm going to answer it in two different ways. As a person who is living in the middle of a pandemic, I want people to know that it is possible to put down the things that we used to enjoy aside to survive for our health. I'm doing that. And I know it's very simplistic to say, oh, everybody can do it, because I know not everybody can do that. But in a way, I want people to know that it is possible for a human being to say, I'm going to stay away from other human beings during this health crisis. As far as I'm concerned, like me personally, I'd like people to know that I'm resilient. I know everybody uses that word these days, but I want people to know that I am strong, I am disciplined, especialmente ahora, and that I'm very optimistic.
Muy bien. Me interesa esto que me dices, que mencionas que eres muy disciplinado, ¿verdad? ¿En qué forma te sientes o en cómo te describirías que eres disciplinado? ¿En qué
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is with COVID-19. I always wear a mask. I'm always 6 feet away from people. I could probably wash my hands a little bit more often than I do. But I think the amount of times that I do is more than most people. I think I am above all mentally disciplined to not make it look like something bad. So I'm doing these things, but it's possible to do these things and go, huff and puff. But I go, oh, okay. I can't wait to see you.
Let me wear a mask. Yes.
Yeah, or like I'm so happy. I do a lot of these kind of hugs, abrazos así,
Oh,
de lejos. Yeah, and I make it fun. Yeah, in that way, I think I'm very disciplined. I'm someone who you could tell. I'm like a machine in some ways in my head. You put the right chip in there, and I'll do it the same way all the time.
you activate it. You activate it.
That's how I would answer your question. That's how I'm disciplined.
Muy bien. Bueno, pasando un poquito más a lo que son las preguntas relacionadas con el COVID-19, ¿verdad? Has mencionado que ha cambiado tu vida y ¿cómo la cambió el COVID-19? ¿Cómo cambió tu vida? ¿Dónde empezamos?
So Anna, I have traveled all over the world. I love viajando. Londres, Paris, Japón, Sudamérica, Russia, I don't know how to say Russia,
Rusia.
España, Malta, Italia, donde quiera, me encanta viajar. And I've been to places over and over again where I feel very comfortable. I feel like the world is my backyard. But guess what? No puedo viajar. No quiero viajar. Yo no quiero estar en un avión sin aire fresco para ir a un parte al otro. Now, tal vez en estos meses que vienen, este verano, voy a ir al Arizona o Nuevo México o California solo en mi coche para viajar, porque es en mi sangre. Mi papá mi papá, sea lo que sea, él también es viajero.
Les
And
gusta viajar.
oh yeah, he was in the army.
Oh,
So he did a lot of that. When I was little, I saw this person I didn't see, I wasn't with him, but I saw he was going to Alemania, he was going to Korea, he was going all over the place. And I remember thinking, remember the little activate?
oh yes.
I'm gonna do that too when I grow up. COVID-19 has stopped all of my traveling. Stopped. Frío.
Claro.
Yeah. And that's the biggest part of the change in my life. I have always traveled. Oh, well, I forgot to mention something very important. Soy comediante.
Oh, mira que
Y haciendo mis shows por todos lados es la razón. That's the reason I've been traveling. Porque yo no soy rico. Somebody has to pay me to go do a show, and then I travel while I'm there. And so I can't be mira, hola, mi nombre es Jade, whatever. The droplets coming from my mouth, if I have COVID, I'm going to give it to somebody. I'm funny. Yo soy muy chistoso. Yo no quiero todas las risas y las droplets viniendo a mí, infectándome. ¿Quién tiene COVID? Pues quién sabe, porque todo el mundo me está riendo y toda la saliva está en todo mi cuerpo.
buen punto que das. Es muy cierto.
No, I know this is a question for later, but I knew right away, Ana, this was bad for comedia. COVID was bad for comedia. I needed, gracias a Dios que tengo otra chamba que yo puedo escribir. But I was like, this is going to be bad and I need to change mi vida.
Sí.
My life has changed a lot.
Y podemos hablar un poquito en cuanto ahorita, buen punto para mencionar, que dices que ha cambiado mucho tu vida. ¿Qué más podías agregar en cuanto ha cambiado tu vida con el COVID-19?
Más ejemplos.
Sí, por ejemplo, has mencionado, como por ejemplo el trabajo, ya me mencionaste que escribir tu comedia con tu familia.
Con mi familia, es difícil con mi familia porque yo soy muy cariñoso con todos. Yo soy del teatro, yo soy latino, yo tengo muchas razones para abrazos. La gente blanca no quieren abrazar a veces porque tiene esa cultura muy fría de Inglaterra, pero como latino siempre estoy abrazando, besando a veces a los dos lados de los cheeks. ¿Qué más? Ya, y con mi familia, especialmente con los niños. Yo tengo una vida completamente diferente con ellos. Porque mi hermana es uno de ellos que no está agarrando todos. She's not taking COVID very seriously. So, of course, the children don't take it seriously.
Me imagino que te quieren pasar, te quieren...
Como normal, ya.
¿Verdad? Sí. Y en cuanto a eso, ¿verdad? Sobre lo que es la familia y que mencionas a tus, a lo mejor sobrinos, sobrinas, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo ha afectado el COVID en las actividades también de ellos?
¿De ellos?
Sí, porque ya vemos que también, así como a ti, ¿verdad? Vemos que en cuanto a ir a una tienda, mucha gente no se quiere poner el cubrebocas, mucha gente no quiere respetar estas normas que se han impuesto.
¿Para ellos o para mí?
Para ambos.
mis sobrinos.
Sí.
Um, lo siento, no entiendo completamente la pregunta.
Como por ejemplo, mencionas que tu hermana, ¿verdad? So your
Yeah.
sister and their kids, they don't take maybe too serious to be, maybe to wear a mask. Just maybe give an example. But what was gonna be your reaction for you to say to your sister in this situation?
Ay, Ana, necesito orar, preguntar para paciencia de Dios, porque yo soy muy bien para juzgar. Y como yo sé que es mal, que no estás usando cubrebocas, yo sé qué está pasando. Mira, COVID is here to stay. That's a fact. It is here to stay. And if you're thinking, oh, well, this summer, can't wait till COVID is gone, you're living in a fantasy land. We need to change how we live. And when I see people or my family not taking COVID seriously, I'm better now. I'm better now because now more and more people are getting COVID. And I'm like, okay, then I need to be that person who adapting to a majority. It's a growing majority of people who are going to have decided they're just going to have COVID and deal with consequences. It's been very difficult for me, Anna, to say, oh, please wear your mask without sounding like a bitch. I'm very, you could just tell if I'm like, what's wrong with you? You know, just, I'm very judgmental when it comes to that. I try very hard not to be because I know, you know, cada cabeza es un mundo, cada chango es su mecate. But it is very difficult, especially if I care about these people. And I don't want them to be sick and I don't want them to die.
Muy bien.
That's been the biggest lesson for COVID for me, is that some people are choosing to not take care of themselves. ¿Y qué puede ser? That's their choice. It's a free country.
Sí. Sí. Y está bien interesante lo que dices. Entonces, ¿tú crees que el COVID ha afectado la salud mental de la sociedad?
Oh, yeah. People are very depressed. People are very depressed. When people go out, mira, como comediante, I was always living around risas, laughter, la ha ha ha, all the time. The people who would come to the comedy club, Ana, this is the only time in their whole week that they have to laugh. A veces, whole month. And they don't laugh. It's my job to laugh all the time. It's my job to make them laugh. That makes me happy. I remember one woman came up to me after a show and she said, "Thank you for making me laugh for the first time since my husband died." And I was like, wow, you know, people are sad. And then the pandemic happens. And all of a sudden, all of the things that we used to have that brings us together are gone. I do believe that it has affected society in a very negative way if you choose to look at it in a negative way, because Christmas was a good example of that. Christmas is Thanksgiving. Hay muchas mamases que dicen, oye, you're not going to keep me away from my nietos. I don't care about this pandemic. Yo quiero ver mis nietos, es Navidad, lo que es, you know, I don't care. That's because that's the only happiness that they truly get. Someone's trying to take it away from them. So, yes, it has made the society more depressed. It's made the society desperate for laughter and good times.
And I agree. I agree in the since the Thanksgiving and the Christmas time. Yeah, I mean, I always see in the news, you know, people go to shopping, maybe online also, right? Online, what was on, era uno de los principales, Amazon o cualquier tienda en línea, pero sí subieron los casos después de lo que fue la acción de gracia.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And you know, that's just human beings. They're gonna do what they want to do.
Bien, bien. Entonces
You know,
pasamos.
I will say this as well. Every time I've been on the phone, well, I'll give you an example. I guess this example, I was on the phone calling someone for a story I was writing, and the secretary, ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Qué haces? ¿Cómo estás hoy? And I was like, oh my goodness. And she just talked for a long, long time because she needed to talk. She needed to talk to somebody. And that's not the first time that's happened to me. It's been many times people have, I'm like, okay, thank you for my laundry, or thank you for, I'm paying my bill. And they're like, oh, it's hard out there, isn't it? And I'm like, oh, here we go. And they tell me this long story, and I listen because I'm patient, and I listen because I understand.
Y es interesante porque sí, a lo mejor la gente ve este carisma en ti, que les gusta platicarte cómo se sienten o entablar una conversación contigo de cualquier cosa. Y a la vez ellos, tanto a ti te sientes a gusto, ¿verdad? Aunque ya sabes que probablemente pasen media hora, una hora, y la persona se va a sentir bien.
Yeah.
Como un regalo que tienes tú que la gente lo puede ver.
Yeah.
Qué bonito.
And that's why I talk to them, you know, I let them talk.
Bien, entonces, pasando un poquito a lo que es, ¿te has hecho del COVID-19? ¿Te has hecho la prueba del COVID-19?
¿Cómo?
¿Te has hecho la prueba del COVID-19?
No.
¿No te la has hecho?
Mm-mm.
¿Y te gustaría hacértela algún día? Nada más, no.
No necesito hacerlo todavía. No tengo problemas agarrándolo. Mira. Yo soy gay. I lived during the age of AIDS and HIV. So for gay men, taking a test gives us anxiety. Because it was always, have you taken your HIV test, your VIH? Have you taken the test? And you're like, no. And then when you're waiting for your test, you're like, do I have AIDS? Or da, 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 da. I know from the beginning of this pandemic that I have never been exposed. Once or twice, maybe. But not exposed to someone that I know has it. Just one time. One time that I felt like, I felt uncomfortable. But enough to get a test? No. No.
Entonces, ¿has experimentado esta experiencia de esta pandemia y quizás cosas que has vivido tú personalmente te han afectado en cuanto a emocional, principalmente emocional?
Oh, yeah. Like right now, you go drive, what is it, Friday night? You go drive to the gay bars, las cantinas gays. Llena de gente. And I can't help but think, con mis años, did we learn anything from La Sida? We've already done this before. What are you doing? Did you learn anything? That's, yes.
¿Y tú crees, o sea, tú crees que la gente va a aprender en cuanto a esta pandemia que estamos viviendo? Quizá pase tiempo y la gente tendrá un aprendizaje de esta pandemia.
If they're going to learn from it, from this pandemic, um, it's like everything. Mira, I have, from my experience in doing shows, if you have 100 people who say they're going to go to your show and only 50 come, that's pretty good. So to answer your question, are people going to learn? Are 100 people going to learn from a pandemic? Out of that 100, I'm going to say 50 are going to learn. That's life. It's never 100%. If you get 60% who learn, real good. Real good.
Más de la mitad. La mitad.
Yeah.
Sí, no, muy interesante. Y en cuanto a un poquito entrando al tema de la tecnología, ¿qué beneficios ha tenido o beneficios positivos o sea, positivos o negativos? ¿Cómo has visto tú o proyectado la tecnología en estos meses?
People are very good at expressing themselves through technology, especially young people. And I say that because I don't think I'm very good at it. I'm very 20th century. I'm older. And when I put something on Facebook or on Instagram, I think about it for a long time. How is this person going to say it? Is this offensive? Is this, as a comedian, I want to say something funny, but it's not. When you're on, okay, for me, when you're on stage and you say something chistoso, they can see your face and they can sense your intención. But if you just put palabras in your Instagram or your Facebook, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. A lot of room. Young people don't have that fear. They just go, oh, I hate this or I hate that. And I see people really embracing social media to express, share. They take the pictures, they're doing more than they used to. And then Zoom, like I have Zoom now, there's a lot of great things about that.
Bien, bien.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Sí, sí, porque, o sea, ha habido beneficios en cuanto a la tecnología. Bueno, tienes una cuenta de Zoom, a lo mejor antes no tenías esta cuenta de Zoom. Es algo nuevo para mí la cuenta de Zoom. Quizás a lo mejor estaba ahí, ¿verdad? O sea, no lo usaba yo tanto, sobre todo en educación, no lo usaba yo tanto en educación, no se usaba, o se usaba a lo mejor ya en rangos más altos, pero pues ahora estamos aquí comunicándonos por Zoom. Podíamos en otro tiempo, podríamos estar, no sé, en un café, platicando, grabando o en un lugar grabando la entrevista diferente. Sin embargo, creo que la tecnología pues nos ha ayudado en este momento. Tienes buen
Lots
punto.
of good things about it, yeah. Very good.
Y ¿tienes familia que vaya a la escuela que esté pasando? O sea, mencionaste tus sobrinos, sobrinas antes, ¿verdad? ¿Les ha afectado sobre esto de la escuela, la tecnología?
Yeah, tengo media hermana que es en escuela, universidad, a UTSA. Tengo mi madrastra, Olga. Tengo mis sobrinos. Y todos tienen una historia diferente de tecnología en sus lecciones.
Bien. ¿Dónde has estado tú viendo las noticias últimamente? Las ves más bien.
¿Otra vez?
Dónde ves tú las noticias?
Mm. Pues mi teléfono. Y también veo a las the updates del alcalde. No cada día, pero más o menos.
Bien, y en cuanto a eso, ¿qué opinas de cómo los medios de comunicación han estado cubriendo la noticia?
De COVID.
Sí, del COVID-19.
Can you ask me that in English?
Yes. So what do you think the news having said to the community and give the news to the community about the COVID-19?
Do I think they're doing a good job?
Yeah, do you think that, I mean, it's like a question, do you think they're doing a good job, the news, or do you think exaggerated? Do you think,
I think they're holding back a lot. I think they're holding back a lot of the real deal of what's going on, but they have to govern. So I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the leadership, because I think the leadership is holding back. And oh, so I'm not really answering your question. I'm still thinking about the mayor and the judge and the governor. I think they're doing the best that they can do. They're doing the best that they can do with what they have, the information that they have.
bien, ¿qué han hecho los locales en tu comunidad en respuesta a la pandemia? ¿Qué se ha hecho aquí en la comunidad de San Antonio?
Oh, in English, I'm sorry.
Sí, no hay problema. What are the community, the leaders of the community, what are they doing in answering this pandemic?
Mm.
What actions they be taking?
Well, going back to your statement about the mental health of society, I think they're really spending a lot of time on that. And what's nice is that the nonprofits and the reason I say is this, because where I live, well, I see it all over because I get the press releases. We're giving a bunch of candies to the seniors for people for Valentine's Day. We are doing things that really are uplifting, make people happy. For the first 50 people or 500 people who come, they get a bag for this or that. And I think the private sector and nonprofits like the food bank and like Lift Fund, I think the private sector and those kinds of organizations are doing a lot for the basic needs of people. But a lot of the times the leaders have to bring them all together. So that's where I think they're playing the part of facilitating some kind of committees to say, you guys are going to take care of food, make food available for people. You guys are going to try to find jobs and training for people. And so the leadership, I guess, so my perception was the leadership are only doing those things like, here's some candies to the viejitos. And it looks that way, but they're doing a lot more now that I say that.
¿Y has sido parte de servicio comunitario? Or have you volunteered in the neighborhood, or like you mentioned, food bank, or maybe like some voluntary places?
No, I think the most I have done is, I don't think I have, I'm trying to think, is I write about these things and I put it out and then people read it. So I feel like I'm serving my community by letting them know certain things.
Muy buen punto.
Yeah.
Trying to doing the, the good thing for the people too, in a different way, because your passion is to write and to, it is nice. It's nice. You're touching hearts.
Hopefully.
Yes, you do.
De lejos.
O virtuales.
Yes, yes.
Virtuales. ¿Y qué más podemos agregar? Do you have any thoughts on how the pandemic has been handled to the US, Mexico, or anywhere else like the world?
Do I have any thoughts on as to how it what?
How pandemic has been handled?
Well, it has been handled very poorly in the United States. Very, very poorly. I I I also teach acting classes um, for actors, and I was doing a Zoom class for some of my students in Australia, and we were talking. I was talking about, oh, we can't do shows right now, but we're practicing to get ready for shows. And they go, oh no, Mr. Estrada, tenemos muchos shows. I say, ¿cómo dices tú? And they're like, no, they said, when the pandemic happened here, we did a good job of shutting everything down and localizing where the pandemic was. So we can have shows where people come to the shows and we're not wearing masks. I said, what? I said, that is not happening in the Estados Unidos. And so now because people can travel, I notice other countries, they have to be very mindful of COVID. It's not going away. But the United States did not help at all with that. Mexico, did you say Canada?
No, well, I said USA, Mexico, or anywhere else. It's a good point that you mentioned Australia. Did you give a good example in here for Australia?
They
So
did a great job. And in the beginning, New Zealand did an amazing job. Amazing job. She shut it down in febrero or enero of last year, the prime minister. And then we had hasta Trump. It's whatever. That's a whole other thing. Thank God he's gone. We handled it very poorly here, very poorly. And then Governor Abbott, Texas is like a country. It's like its own. It's so big. It's like its own country. But we could have handled that better too, a lot better.
So, in one point that you mentioned it, so you are teaching it right now to online classes from acting, but before the pandemic, you're still teaching that. You're
I was
taking
teaching in person.
in person in Australia.
I have gone to Australia to perform, and when I was there, I was also doing classes.
So, and then you have to go
I think they would have invited me to do a Zoom class. They invited me to do a Zoom class before the pandemic, I believe. No me acuerdo. I did it in October, and they had invited me like in June. So they were already doing Zoom classes. But it's possible that they would have invited me because I'm not going to go to Australia right now. So.
Muy bien.
So Zoom is new. Zoom is new. Zoom allows for a lot of new things now, You're making a very good point that I'm not able to travel now, but I'm able to travel in the Zoom. So yeah, so I'm going back to your other question that's something that's very good about the digital change.
Yes, because now that you're telling me that it is be good for you to maybe start to think about it like they're acting, try to make some courses, from acting and have it. It's a possibility now.
It really is. And
What it was, need to think about.
I had like last Wednesday night, I had an acting class, and they all live near me, and we would usually get together in one spot. And I've been doing it for 12 years, so I've been doing it for a long time. So in my mind, it feels like less of an interaction because we're not together. But when I hang up the call, I feel like we had a great class. And I remember thinking, I could do this. I'm just aquí sentado. I could do this more often, like you say. And because this is the new way of living.
Yes.
Very different, Ana, very different.
Sí, es cierto. Y en cuanto a, pues, ha mencionado del trabajo, ¿cómo al principio de la pandemia, verdad? Bueno, aquí se mencionó cerca de marzo, ¿cómo tomaste tú las, bueno, digamos, precauciones o alertándote? You know that they have like people going to the store, you know, and doing shoppings, like maybe leaving the store almost empty. Do you have that experience? Do you want to mention some experience about how the community react?
They reacted, they took all the food in the beginning. It was going shopping was, well, I didn't do shopping in the beginning. My stepmother did because my dad has a ranch outside of San Antonio. In my head, I thought, well, maybe it's a good idea to stay outside of San Antonio. And so I just remember in the beginning, my stepmother saying, you know, no, there's no toilet paper, there's no bread, there's no meat at the store. Like I keep going and there's nothing. So I didn't experience it myself because at the time my stepmother was doing all the shopping, but I had heard about it and everybody was making jokes about it.
Oh, so you make some of the jokes?
Oh yeah, of course.
Bien, bien. Y en cuanto en eso de ¿cómo crees que la gente vaya a, pues, a sentirse en cuanto van a la tienda y vayan, o sea, están peleándose, quizás no se peleen, ¿verdad? Pero están esperando el turno con ansiedad porque llegó un momento en que las tiendas estaban formadas afuera, la gente estaba formada afuera.
Mhm.
¿Crees que la gente llegue a un punto de que puedan ocasionar un conflicto mayor?
Do I think
They can be a, yeah, they can be a conflict, major conflict, you know, because fighting for food, mainly food needs.
that is always a possibility, Anna. Always a possibility. That's one thing that the pandemic, the insurrection at the US Capitol, these things have opened our eyes to the anger and the rage that people feel that was already there before the pandemic. It's like having frijoles on la estufa, and the frijoles is the anger and the rage, and the pandemic is the fuego. You just turn on the fuego, and then, because it was already there. So there's always that possibility. Always that possibility.
Do you have around San Antonio, maybe people buying like stuff that they need for protection for their house or for each other, the neighbor?
Yeah,
Neighbors?
my dad does it. My dad does it. Who else does it? I can't remember who else does it, but it's, oh, my sister does it. I don't know how she's gonna do that, but she has one.
Y, y es interesante porque aquí entran aspectos políticos, todo lo que se está viviendo con esta pandemia que estamos viviendo, ¿verdad? Cómo ¿Cómo lo ha tomado la gente? Y en cuanto a eso, viene la pregunta, what concerns do you have about the economy moving forward?
That's a very specific question. See, there's always money in the world. It just depends on who has it, right? At a particular time. And maybe we see people who are starving and people don't have food. Some people don't have jobs. But if you look the other direction, Whataburger, por ejemplo, están haciendo mucho lana cada día, cada momento. Every time you blink, Whataburger is making a ton of money. HEB is doing really well. We're gonna have some things that are not available anymore. Certain kinds of meat won't be available because of the meat packing plants. We're gonna go through dips. Aquí, allá. I don't think we're ever going to have a complete economic crisis. What we're having a crisis about is we're having a change in where money's coming from and how it's coming. And a lot of people are having to get new jobs because the jobs they had were dependent on the old way of living.
Mm.
That's very interesting because if you had asked me that question a long time ago, I would have said that we were going to have a really bad downturn. But I'm looking at it a different way. Even though we have a downturn here in San Antonio and it looks really bad, if you go like to New Braunfels or you go to, you know, Pecos, Texas, or you go to Marfa, you know, you're gonna see Texas is a big place. And so you're gonna have different things happening at different times. But anytime there's change at all, people are gonna get really bent out of shape.
Exactly. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, or you hope, will happen to your job in the future?
Well, it's already happened to me that I can't perform on stage. I had one comedy club in Arizona. They asked me in September, I think. They said, "Hey, you want to come do a show?" And I was like, "No, what are you thinking?" But I feel bad for them because they've been in business for years and years and years. And the government said, it's okay to have these kind of shows, but what the government says and what's actually safe is not the same thing sometimes. You know, that's the way I see it. But it's already happened for me. Live shows, I can't do them, you know, anymore. And if COVID is just going to, I mean, now we have the new variants coming from Brazil and the United Kingdom, you know, where these vaccines, you know, they work for a different kind of virus. This is a different virus. It's morphed, it's gotten different, it's gotten smarter. That's another thing I learned from VIH y la SIDA, is that it's got smarter. With every time you give it a medicine, it figures it out and gets smarter and it decides to do something else. I think I need to really like love Zoom and learn to communicate with people as a comedian. I like my writing, of course, but my job changed tremendously.
Bien, bien. Y esto que mencionas, de la vacuna, qué es lo que podrías describir acerca de la vacuna? ¿Positivo o negativo?
¿Describir o escribir?
No, o sea, como qué es lo que que tú piensas de la vacuna que acaba de salir? Bueno, que ya está sobre la vacuna del COVID-19.
No. ¿Cómo vas a hacer una vacuna en un año? Un año. Una vacuna, it takes 10 years to get one right. Un año, no se hace nada. And then, like I said, COVID is going to morph and change. I think, you know what that is? The shot in the arm? Esperanza. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less.
Y en cuanto a eso, que sea obligatorio ponerse todos la vacuna, tanto para asistir al trabajo como para simplemente como sea la carta de vacuna que tienen los niños desde chiquitos, ¿verdad?
I think that would be a different time period. I think by the time we get to that, the vaccine will be better. And I will have a little bit more confianza in that. But we're 3 years away from something like that. 2.5, 3 years away from anything what you're describing. We're not there yet. And I'm gonna say no until I feel comfortable. I'm reading everything. I'm reading everything about it. You know what I do, Ana?
¿Qué haces?
On my phone, I use OneNote. I don't know if you know the app, OneNote, just to
Sí.
take notes. And every time uno de mis amistades dicen, acabo de agarrar mi vacuna, aquí está mi tarjeta, I write it down. Because I'm studying. My grandmother always said, study people. I'm studying when they get their first shot, their second shot, and hopefully everything is okay. Pero si no, I have a paper trail. I'm very good at research. I'm like you. I'm very good at research. People go, that's not true. I said, yeah, you know why? Because I wrote it down 2 years ago.
Es cierto, porque van a ser 2 dosis. Son 2 dosis de vacuna.
And they're supposed to only work for 6 months, some of them.
So what happened after the 6 months?
Whatever's next. That's another reason. I'm just like, it's a baby. Es un bebito en el mundo de medicina. It's a baby. I remember when we first had our first medicine for VIH. And so AIDS came out in 1981, or it was before that, but when it was announced in the New York Times in 1981. Oh gosh, when did AZT come out? AZT, Acetate, came out, I think, in the late 1980s. And it saved you from dying, yes, but it made you sick. People who took the AZT es como golpeazos a tu cuerpo. And it took another 10 years to get medicine that was better.
Y hablando de eso, Fauci was the one also be in a process to HIV into this one too, of course.
He has a lot of experience. When I saw his resume, I said, we're in good hands. But he also knows that we have to be very patient. Because they say this all the time. They've never seen a virus que puede matar a una persona y la otra persona ni tiene síntomas. It's different for everybody. So that makes it, they're like, well, how do we approach this? It's not like AIDS or HIV. very different.
Disculpa, ¿has conocido a alguien que ha estado infectado del COVID-19?
Yes, family members. Well, no, and friends. Infected and supposedly fine. I have a list of that too. Obviously. Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on people.
¿Y te han mencionado cómo han sido los síntomas del COVID-19? Han sido los que se oyen a lo mejor en televisión.
Have I seen them?
Yeah, the symptoms, do they the same that you are seeing in the TV and the news?
Like a, like a cold. They have trouble breathing. It's a respiratory disease, so it's all up here. I feel bad when people say they can't taste or smell. That's horrible.
Yes.
But, and I don't know if you're going to get to this, but I will say this about what I feel about COVID. Is that a lot of people are saying, I have COVID. And then a week later, I don't have COVID anymore. I went to take my test and no tengo COVID ya. And I go back to my understanding of VIH. You can take the test for VIH and have it one day, but if your T cells come up a little bit more, your T cells come up enough, the test says that you don't have it anymore. But that doesn't mean you don't have the VIH in your system. And that doesn't mean it can't just come back. And mi punto es que if you have COVID-19, it might come down, but I don't know that it's gone. So when I write down that people have it, para mí, they have it. Which means I just have to be careful around them.
Muy bien, me parece perfecto. Una de las preguntas que sigue a continuación es, what are you the most looking forward to be when the pandemic is over?
What I'm doing?
Yeah, or I guess like looking for that can be applied doing.
A job. I just want to be on stage again. Just to do another comedy show would be great. To be in front of people like 2 feet away and make them laugh and me not be worried.
And bien, y como reflexión, like reflection in the future, if you could go back in time and talk to you before the pandemic, what would you tell yourself?
You know what? I have really good instincts. I have been traveling like crazy from 2013 to 2019. I've been traveling like crazy. And people are like, ¿por qué estás viajando tanto? Nunca estás en la casa. And I'm like, I just need to go do it. I need to go do it. I am so glad that I did that. I won't tell myself to travel because I was already doing that. But that's my big love. I would say, what would I tell myself before the pandemic?
Yeah, yeah. If you could go back in time and talk to yourself before the pandemic, what would you tell yourself?
I would say go and have lots of dates. I would do that. Because now, no way. And that's another thing that's very crazy on the internet. I mean, on Tinder and all those places on online. People are like, let's meet, let's meet. I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's meet. What's wrong with your head? No. So I would tell myself that. I would say date more, enjoy that. Enjoy, todavía estás joven. Enjoy all that. But I'm glad that I'm not saying that about traveling. I miss traveling, but I don't have like deseos, tengo recuerdos. So that's good.
That's good. What advice would you have based on what you have learned?
Advice to who?
Oh, what advice? I guess it is to the pandemic. What advice would you have? Will apply everything. It will apply all your experience based on what you be experienced with this pandemic.
Stand your ground. Stand your ground. Hay mucha gente que cuando pones el cubrebocas así, dicen, no, yo no tengo ese virus. Y luego, ¿por qué quieren ese? They get offended. And I'm someone who's very like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't like to offend people. But standing your ground, what I mean by that is stay 6 feet, wear your your mask, do what you know is right for your health. And don't let people who don't believe any of this for whatever reason try to change your mind about doing what you want to do. It's a great exercise, and it's a great exercise in standing up for what you believe in. I would like to be around in the year 2040, 2050, 2070. I would. And I think I want to look back on this and go, those were some hard times, but we got through it. It's only 10 years.
You think it's gonna take around 10 years to be
Por lo menos.
por lo menos.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that you're saying, how do you think the pandemic will have lasting effect on the world? Over.
Anna,
10
we're
years.
doing it right now. We're doing it right now. When in the year 2070, 2080, in the year 3000, the kids are gonna look in the history books and they're gonna look at the digital boom that started in 2020. And they're gonna see how life completely changed. Completely changed. In 1920, the wars were over, or the wars were just beginning, depending on how you look at it. 1820, every 100 years, something dramatic happens.
It's true. It is true. Good
And
point.
this is the digital boom that we will always remember. How this is one thing that's this is something COVID might go away in some way, shape, or form, or go to the side, but the digital boom is here to stay. I need to get used to Zoom.
And teaching, do you think the schools and university will be open 100% instead of be like remote, asynchronous and synchronous? And
No, I don't think it needs to be. It would be a nice idea. I mean, of course it's nice to be in the classroom, but it doesn't need it has already proven that it doesn't need to be hace mucho. Online classes are not anything new. So no, I don't think it's going to go back. If the health crisis continues and morphs into something else, um, why put students at risk like that? But I think us as a culture, we're going to get really comfortable. We're going to have fashionable masks. We're going to have
And that they already said that. Fashion
that's
mask.
true, yeah. But I think we're going to have different cultures of people who have COVID and people who have not had COVID, and we're going to go through some stuff. We're going to go through some stuff in the future. There'll be some prejudice. I'm prejudiced. If I know that you have COVID, I'm prejudiced. I'm not going to treat you the same way as I do someone else. I need to work through that already, because I know in the future we're going to have to come together as people who are infected and people who are not infected. Because guess what? That's what we did with VIH.
That's exactly.
So I have to remember how that works. Because in the 90s and the 2000s, people with HIV and AIDS and people were not, we used to call them seropositives. HIV positives and seropositives. And it was a mix. One person, una pareja, one had VIH, the other one didn't. And that was the beginning of a culture of mixed. And I think we're going to go from, oh my goodness, COVID is happening, to, oh my goodness, those people have COVID, stay away, to the next part is, how do we all live together knowing that this person has COVID and could possibly infect us, but we're still working together and living together.
Muy bien, muy bien. ¿Algo más que te gustaría agregar relacionado con algo más que quieres agregar?
Agregar?
Sí, something else that you want to say about the topic, about the pandemic? Anything else that you want to?
I think it's just it's great that you're capturing this. I don't know exactly what you're capturing it for. Like, what is it for, a class or for?
I'm a graduate student, and the professor doing investigation about what was the impact in the San Antonio, how the COVID impact community. So how they impact all the community of San Antonio. And there's a lot of like in the health, we had problems like you mentioned about the health, you mentioned about technology. And I like the digital boom. I like the topic of digital boom. Government, news. Well, news can apply in the technology, as mentioned. Okay, it's more apps. People there going to, social media. They're now doing maybe like WhatsApp, these apps that they can talk each other. So it is big time a boom in technology. And you talk about that. You give me a lot of good examples. And family, you tell me how was your life before the pandemic and during the pandemic, and then you also give me a perspective in the future.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yes.
I will say one thing that I will add one thing, because I want to bring it back to San Antonio. It has hit the Latinos very hard because we are very cariñosos. We are very family oriented. We are very, everybody sits in a tiny table. It is a chair all around the round table, and everybody eats together. They laugh together. They yell at each other, but we're always very together. And in many ways, San Antonio is like a little Mexico in a lot of ways. And this is a grown-up virus. This is the real deal. And in many ways, it is uh, a community that is so a people that is so community based is a perfect victim for a virus like this. If people are by themselves, far away from other people, the virus goes, nah, ni pa qué. But if I'm a virus and I see a whole bunch of people together because they're family and they love each other, I go, ooh, perfect. So San Antonio is like that. And I think in relation to COVID-19, what makes San Antonio different from a lot of cities in los Estados Unidos is that it's like a little bit of Mexico here, and it's gonna hit and has hit hard already.
Pues muchas gracias, Elizabeth. Ha sido un placer en esta tarde, febrero 12 del 2021, tener esta entrevista con usted y fue un placer su tiempo y muchas gracias por su tiempo. Agradezco tu tiempo y hemos terminado aquí la entrevista de cómo ha afectado el COVID-19 en la comunidad de San Antonio.
Well,
Muchas gracias.
thank you so much.